S.S.S. Korach, Tov Shin, Hey Hey. I always find S.S.S. Korach as a very, very interesting because the theme that we speak about each year is really the same theme. And it's Kedai, certainly once a year. Really, people should think about it more than once a year. But it's Kedai to think about this entire inyan of Machlokes and what it does. And this week's Parsha teaches us all the important lessons about how severe Machlokes really is and the destruction that Machlokes causes and really what Machlokes does to those who are involved in Machlokes. The Gemara, Set the Sanhedrin, Daf Kufyud Amar Aleph tells us that Kol HaMachzik B'Machlokes, anyone who gets involved in the Machlokes, who's dealing in a Machlokes, Oiver B'Lav. The Gemara says that if you're involved in a Machlokes, you're over in a Lav. What's the Lav? From our Parsha. V'lo yiyeh ki Korach b'cha dosoi. That you should not be like Korach and his people. So really, we need to think a little deeper into what happened. The Torah is telling us that you should not be like Korach. So on a little bit more of a deeper level, what was Korach? What happened here to Korach? How do we analyze this entire episode? What is it exactly that makes Machlokes so terrible that Hashem had to create an entirely new type of severe punishment that had never ever been seen before? And we all know what happened with the earth. Fascinating what happened, right? The earth opened up and it swallowed everyone who was involved in this Machlokes. It swallowed them up alive. So something new had to be created. Something that was never seen before. In other words, none of the punishments mentioned in the Torah, sometimes even for severe Averos, nothing was severe enough for this, for what Korach was doing, for this Machlokes. Nothing was severe enough, nothing was harsh enough, and something new had to be created. And if you think about it, this is all for what? This is for Machlokes, which we mentioned is only a lav. So for a lav, no punishment in the Torah that was for severe averas. None of those punishments were good enough, and something new had to be created to deal with Korach, his people, and the Machlokes. And Stamazoi, that's a lesson right away for every one of us. When we try to make, I'm just getting involved in Machlokes a little bit. I'm not really involved. I'm just like listening to what's being involved. And if you see the gravity and the seriousness which the Torah treats one who is involved in a Machlokes, that Hashem had to create something totally new, nothing was severe enough, it should be enough to make every one of us, every person, run, not just run, but to run as fast as we can and as far away as we can get from Machlokes. Chazal tell us in Bamidbar Rabbah Yud Ches, when speaking about just how bad Machlokes is, the Medrash tells us something mamish fascinating. And the Medrash says like this: you ever think about it? That Bezdin Shalmaila, we know, Bezdin Shalmaila does not punish a person until they are 20 years old. In order to be punished by Bezdin Shalmaila, you have to be over 20 years old. And Bezdin Shalmata is a little bit less. Bezdin over here, on this world, Bezin Shomata, a person has to be, you have to be 13 years old and above in order to be punished. But take a look here in our parsha, by Korach, babies that were 1 day old, they went down too. They were swallowed up also by the earth. Now the big question, why and how is that? A baby who's 1 day old, a baby who's a month old, 2 months old, whatever, they have to go down. They have to be so severe. What's going on over here? Young children should go down, right? Something our minds, our street minds, our American minds, whatever you want to call us, we can't wrap our minds around this, that such young children should be punished along with the adults over here. And not only that, even further, Moshe Rabbeinu warned everyone after they got swallowed down into the earth. Moshe Rabbeinu warned everyone, do not even touch any of the belongings of the people. There was no looting. They went down, they left all the belongings, and Moshe, some belongings I think went down with them, the Nitzim or whatever, but people had things that didn't go down. Moshe Rabbeinu said, you cannot touch any of the belongings of those who are Pashut. And we don't see that anywhere else, that somebody gets punished for something and we're instructed, don't go to their house, don't touch anything, don't touch any of their belongings. Even people who commit severe averos, the Torah doesn't tell us that you can't use or touch anything that they own. Why is this worse than anything else? We see this type of thing also. Now we're coming tonight, tomorrow also is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, and when we hit the Chodesh of Tammuz, we start to think, we should really be thinking about it all the time, but we start to think a little bit, or maybe a lot, hopefully, about the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the fact that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash today, and the Gemara, a famous Gemara that speaks about this, the Gemara Mesechus Yuma, Daf Tes Amud Beis, tells us that by the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because we know of severe averos. First Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for that. The second Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara tells us, was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam. And what does this show us? The Gemara says it shows us that if the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for all those severe averos, the second Beis HaMikdash with Sinas Chinam, it shows us that Sinas Chinam is on par, is equal to all of those other averos put together. Sinas Chinam. Once again, how is that possible? Why is it different? What's so severe about Machloikis, about Sinas Chinam? Once again, it's just a lav. What's Sinas Chinam? A lav in the Torah of Leisisna Esachicha Bilvavecha. A lav. And for a lav, it should be worse than anything else in the Torah. And in our parsha, once again, we also said Machloikis is just a lav. And you know, all the people who were punished, the Nesivos Shalom tells us that all the people who were punished, and you know, in that group of people who were punished, there were Nesiim also. There were very, very great people. And all those people, not only was it just a lav, but they all, the Nesiim, if there were Nesiim involved, all these people, they all thought that doing it also l'shem shamayim. And, you know, just as a side note, many, many times you ask people why they're doing certain things. Why are you involved in this machlokes? Why are you saying lashon hara about this person? Why are you over on sinas chinam? Most of the time they're going to have an answer that it's l'shem shamayim. That it's l'shem shamayim. It's not for me. There's no covenant involved. There's nothing. It's all l'shem shamayim. And if you hear that someone tells you these things are l'shem shamayim, I suggest you run the other way, because it's 10 times as bad. If they don't even take any blame for it, and they're blaming it already on Hashem, it's l'shem shamayim, it's not my fault, then you know you're really in trouble. But the Nesivos Shalom tells us something very interesting to explain this phenomenon. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us that all these questions that we have, that why is Machlokes so bad? Why is Sinas Chinam so bad? And Nesivos Shalom says they're all excellent questions. They're really, really good questions. Because Taka, in our minds, it's very hard to add that up. It doesn't really make sense. Says the Nesivos Shalom that the Torah is teaching us that yes, Machlokes really is that bad, and the lashon that is used about it is Godol Avoinai Minasai. That the Aveira of Sinas Chinam and Machlokes is too great for any person to carry around. We all know, famously, Rabbi Akiva says, everybody knows, Omar Rabbi Akiva, V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, what is it? Everybody knows, together, Zeklal Godol B'Torah. One thing in the Torah, the Klal Gadol. What is that? V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. It's a tremendous thing. It's the almost unbelievable big thing in the Torah. When Klal Yisrael is ba'achdas, v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha, it causes a lot of things to go on in Shemayim. You know what it causes? It causes that Hashem is our Father, and we are called Banim. We're now children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But you know what it teaches us? Unfortunately, the opposite is true too. V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha is Zeh Klal Gadol B'Torah. Why? Because it makes us Hashem as a Father, and we are children. But unfortunately, says in the Nesivos Shalom, when it's the opposite, and there's Machlokes, then we lack all of that. It causes us that now, Chas v'Shalom, Hashem is not like our Father. That we do not deserve to be the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you're not just causing Machlokes over here. That strife and Machlokes among Jews, among Yidden, it creates separation all the way to Olam Yosel. Because if the V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha is a Klal Gadol B'Torah, that brings Hashem to us, and we have a relationship of father to children, then if it's the opposite, it has the power to break that apart and go all the way up. And yes, you, the person who's involved in Machlokes, a person who's speaking Lashon Hara, a person that says Sinas Chinam, is mamish causing that in Shemayim there's a break now in the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. So therefore, says in the Nesivos Shalom, the einish for Machlokes is more severe. Yes, no punishment in the world was appropriate, was enough. A new punishment had to be created because you are causing something more severe than anything else in the Torah, more severe than any Aveira. And because it creates period separation above and below. And that is why Korach was punished so severely. Because not only did he create Machlokes here, but he tore apart the relationship all the way up to Shemayim, where now HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't be in a father and children relationship to us. And the reason, says in the Nesivos Shalom, beautiful, he makes you understand, he says that what was going on then, you know what Machlokes is? Machlokes is like an infectious disease. You know, when there's a bad, many of us learned the lesson in COVID, when there's a bad disease, Chas v'Shalom, going around, so what happens is, anything that's in the room, anything that's in the hospital, they take everything, they burn it. You know, if a person's suffering from a mild illness, so you go in, you take a little, or if a little more, you take antibiotics, you better. But if it's severe, you have to take everything, and you have to, mamish burn it, you have to throw it away. And that's what happened by Korach. All their belongings, it had a little whiff, it had a whiff of Machlokes, it becomes infectious. Everything related to Machlokes has to be destroyed and put away and thrown away. And that's the lesson we have to learn this week when we come to Parshas Korach. How much we have to run away from Machlokes, how much we have to stay away. And if we do that, Taka, we'll be zoicha that the 3 weeks when it comes should bring us to Binyan Beis HaMikdash, and we will be zoicha to have the relationship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Klal Yisrael as father to children.